Hi, everybody. This is Mind Your Money with Miss Be Helpful, the show that highlights people and stories that will inspire you to get your money right. And today I'm talking to somebody who didn't just get her money right, but she's getting her and her whole husband and their whole marriage's money right, which is so awesome to hear and to see. So today I'm talking to Alli from Financially Focused. What's up, Alli?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited for you to come on. And so I actually first found Alli on Instagram. Her Instagram is @financially focused, but instead of a Y in the word financially, it's I, because how cute is that? Her name is Alli, Alli. And once I found her on Instagram, I started to see her content and I was like, wow, her posts are really, really good. Like, they're really detailed. They're focused on a lot of really specific details with her money, with her budgeting. You can tell just from her Instagram feed that she's the one that controls the money and the finances in her relationship, which I loved. I'm like, yes, girl power. So Alli, just for those of you who might not be familiar with you or with your brand Financially Focused, can you just go ahead and give us a quick intro about you and your background?
Yeah, so I'm Alli Williams. I own, like you said, Financially Focused, and it's, like you said, spelled with an I because that's my name. So it started as a blog in 2017 and kind of just like evolved from there. So what I do now, one of the big things is like help specifically women and couples kind of focus on like their money goals and building wealth and kind of finding a balance. I don't believe in like bare bones budgeting. I don't do it, and I don't really preach that. So, really helping to balance debt and savings and just like life expenses. I got married last August, so I guess still considered a newlywed.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I live in South Carolina right now, but was born and raised in New York. And I got my MBA in finance. When did I graduate? 2018. And yeah, so it's kind of been here and there, but it's been fun. It's been a fun journey so far.
So cool. Just like all the different facets of your money journey. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how you got out of debt and all the things with your debt repayment and getting debt-free plan in a little bit. But first, what I like to do is I like to start the show with some really fun questions, because I notice a lot of people, they tend to think that like financial influencers, they like, just have everything together and just know money from start to finish. And we're just born budgeting. And that's just not how it is. Like we know that's not how it is. But I like to just kind of point out like, no, we have regrets. We made mistakes too. So if there is a time that you could think of where you spent way too much money, I mean, you spent way too much money, and to this day you regret it because it was just too expensive, what would that purchase or maybe that experience or service that you paid for, what would that be?
So the first thing that like just comes to mind is my car. And so when I graduated college, I thought, what's the adult thing to do? And it's buy a brand new car, like fully new, like, barely put anything down, like obviously needed a car loan. And like, I didn't even hesitate. Like it was just a reaction. And I mean, thankfully I got like a Hyundai Tucson. So it wasn't like I was getting a BMW, but it was still like $26,000 loan or something like that. Like it still was significant. Yeah. And I would say that's the biggest thing where I was like, if I do it again, I would get like a new to me car with obviously like safe and low mileage and whatever, but I would not buy like a fully brand new car. And I was like so excited. I still have, I think on my personal Instagram, like the post of like when I got it and like how excited I was. And, it was like my first adult, like in my mind, like adult purchase, like 21 years old, just graduated college, thought I had like, I had a full-time job coming. I knew I had like income and was like, yes, new car is like the way to go. And my minimum, I mean, I paid it off thankfully early once I realized this was like not a good idea. But my payment, I think, was like $400 a month.
It had to be like around $500 a month.
Yeah, it was like $415 or something. Thankfully, I got it through a credit union, so my interest rate was like very low. It was like 1.9% or one. It was like super low. So it wasn't interest was the issue, but it was like, it was still expensive. I mean, it was $415 a month that was going to my car. I'd say that was like the most expensive thing where I was like, I wouldn't do it again. I don't regret it because I learned from it. I learned from it and I can like share my experience and hopefully not like tell others so they don't do that. But it was, I wouldn't do it again.
No, definitely wouldn't repeat that. This reminds me. So I recently talked to Sarah, who's on YouTube, known as Budget Girl, and she had the same answer. I mean, which I don't know if she said that she bought a brand new car, but her answer was like, I've always been the kind of person who knew to be savvy when it comes to buying cars. And so she's very much gotten into the habit of like doing all the research, certified pre-owned, or, doing the work to find out like if this car is good quality, but never paying full price for a new car, and getting like, decent cars that are, lightly used, but like really good condition. And it just made me think like, why is it that so many people believe that like the thing to do is get that brand new brand spanking new with the fresh car smell kind of car? Like I don't get it.
And I wasn't even like like I remember going in, and I was in South Carolina for school, and like I bought the car in New York, which like, because that's where I'm from. So like New York, I mean, taxes obviously on the car were high too, because it's New York taxes. And I just remember going in and like signing everything and being like, wasn't even like hesitant about it. It was just like,
it felt really good. You
right. It literally,
pictures, like this is my accomplishment.
Yes. It was like, I bought this, but really I just took a loan. Like I didn't buy it at all. I just took out a loan. Like I didn't own it at all.
Isn't that so weird that we do that with everything though, right? Like, when we accomplish something that we financially, we don't talk about how we paid for it. We just talk about what we got. Like this is what I got, this is what I got. But pay for it in cash.
Right. I was like, look at me. Like I have this new car I bought. Like it's mine, but really it was the credit unions until I paid it off.
They can take that car right from you.
Right.
And there's two things I think here, from Alli's story that I think is so important. One is never buy a brand new car with like full cost, get a huge loan for it, unless like you have the money and you could buy that car and that's just what you want. I mean, there's plenty of uber super wealthy people that could just drop the money on a car, whatever. Right. And sure, that's a different situation.
Right. That was not me.
People, average amounts of money for average, like it just doesn't make sense. And I remember my sister actually did the same thing. She went when she was like in her, I don't know, early mid-20s. She got a better job. She, had a baby. She wanted to have a car. So she took my dad with her to the dealership. And my dad was in her ear the whole time. Get a used car, get a little hoopty, save money, and my dad's always been frugal, but she was just adamant that she had to get the brand new car. I think her car ended up at the end of the day costing her a total, after like all her interest and the loan and everything was repaid, $60,000.
Crazy.
That's somebody's entire annual salary.
Right.
Like,
no, that's more than like my husband. Like that, even if that's like more than salaries, like that's insane.
Seriously, more than an average person's salary. Like, and so when we think about things like that, like I feel like it's because of misinformation. Like people don't really know. They just think you're supposed to get the new car. You're supposed to do that. But the second thing that Alli's story pointed out was that like if you get a new car, the moment you drive off the lot, it depreciates in value. It is less. It's worth less money the second you drive it off that lot. And versus Alli's new perspective, which is like, never do that, because I wouldn't do that again, because it's just not a smart investment. Like I'm not going to get a return back unless you're using that car for work and it's generating income. Something else. But
I mean, thankfully, like it's paid off. I still have it. I mean, it's caused us like a ton of issues, like the car itself, like the engine died, and there's stories for another time, stranded on the side of the interstate. And thankfully, like it was covered, like it was still under warranty and whatever, but it's paid off. So like now at least it's nice now. Like it's paid. I don't have any car payments. When an oil change comes up or new tires, it's not as frantic. Like I have a sinking fund or other things for it. But like my early 20s, like I graduated college at 21, bought this car and thought like, this is the best thing, this is what you're supposed to do. Like, buy something new after you graduate.
Is that you don't even incorporate the total cost. You're just thinking about your cost that you're going to pay every month for the car note. But the thing is, you also got to think about gas. You have to think about maintenance on that car. You have to think about sometimes, in many cases, parking, paying to park the car. So the price tag ends up higher, right?
Oh, 100%. And like, I didn't put much down because I was, a senior. Like I worked some in college, but like I had maybe a few $1,000s to my name, like in general. So it wasn't like I had, put down a ton. I think I put down enough to cover taxes and like, whatever fees, but like I wasn't putting anything really towards the car down. So it was like, I pretty much just put the whole car on a loan and thought like I owned it, which I did not.
A lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. So hopefully, Alli's lesson learned wasn't just hers. Now people listening, especially if you're a younger person out there, because I think your story too, it was like you're 21. Who the heck do you know when you're 21 that can whisper in your ear like my dad did to my sister? I mean, even in that case, because my dad's a little older, my sister was like, please, old man, like I don't want to do, know what I'm going through. I'm young. I can have a nice car. But if your own friends around you sort of are talking to you and pressuring you to make the smart
Right.
money move, you'll probably listen. But
Right.
not a lot of 21-year-olds have
No.
financially savvy friends. So that's
Yeah,
probably
none
not
of
gonna
my friends were, I mean, I like, they, were figuring things out on their own. Like they just graduated too. And so no one really like knew we didn't know what we were doing from a money standpoint. And everyone had new cars or, were buying things for themselves after they graduated. So it was like the thing to do, even though it wasn't, it wasn't something I should have done. I should have, even if I needed a loan, taken out something for $15,000 versus like 26, 27 and paid it off. Cause I needed a car, for work, to like after I graduated. But yeah, definitely could have approached it differently.
For sure. And I think those are obviously, lessons learned. It's sort of the school of hard knocks is how you learn it because you don't actually in actual school.
Yeah.
All right, cool. What about on the flip side of that? What about an experience that you can remember or a purchase that you made where you spent way too much money and other people probably look to your financial situation and say, oh, you're crazy. I can't believe you spent all that money. But even now, you still don't regret it. You're glad that you made that purchase and it was worthwhile for you.
Right. So what comes to mind with that is our wedding. So we paid for our wedding last year. And we definitely spent a ton, like I think a lot in the Instagram community, whatever, is like, you don't need a big wedding. You don't need to spend a lot, which you don't, but we wanted a big wedding. We had, we invited a little over 200. I think we had 175 come. We paid for everything. And I don't regret it at all. Like we had a, video and photographer. I mean, we didn't, of course, have the fanciest of everything, but we had everything we wanted. And the biggest part, I think, which a lot of people kind of found me through was like, I saved $17,000 for our wedding before I was even engaged. So like,
that helped us out.
And that helped. Yeah, we wouldn't, we got engaged and planned for a year, but like we had $17,000, to put towards it. So that helped a ton. But, that took a lot of me planning. Like eventually I was going to get married. And the thing with me was, even if I didn't get married, I could have put that money towards something else. And like the whole point is just to start saving. If like I knew we'd have to, pay for our wedding, which I was completely okay with. But like, if I wanted to have the wedding that I wanted, then like, yeah, I was going to have to start saving in advance. I mean, we paid, I don't think I've ever actually shared the amount, but I think it was like 35 to 40,000 for our wedding, like around that, which is in South Carolina, which like is a lot. I mean,
I think that sounds pretty average for New York, but even in New York City, people spend even more than that, like way more than that. So,
right. And, we are paying off 6 figures of debt. So I did get a lot of comments like, you could have, had a small elopement and put it towards debt. And guess what? Like, I don't regret it at all. I would do it again. And I would still extend this. If this extends our debt payoff by a year or two or whatever it is, I do not regret it at all. Like
that's what makes personal finance personal. Right. It's about the person. It's about your preferences. To you, that meant so much, and you got so much value from that day and that experience. Like, then what does it matter what everybody else thinks?
We had everyone, there from like all walks of life. Like so many people from New York came down, and so many of my friends, like I grew up with, and family friends. Like it was just like the perfect day. Like I like literally like sobbed when it was over, and I felt bad for my husband because he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "It's over." But like, I would do it again.
You were like, you didn't want it to be over.
Well, it's just you never have everyone in one room like that again. Like everyone you care about, and I wouldn't have changed. I wouldn't have cut anyone. There's nothing I would have changed. And like, yes, we spent a lot. Yes, we could have put it towards debt or done something else. But like, it's all, like for me, it's all about balance. I have this like. We did, cut certain things or try to like keep it as reasonable cost. Like for me, flowers weren't important. So I picked like bare minimum flowers, which just was like bouquets and boutonnieres, cheapest, like small flowers I could find, didn't care. So like we prioritized, like DJ was important to us. I wanted like a good DJ where you can dance all night. And like, so that was important. Flowers weren't. Food was like important, but we did like stations, that were just out. So we didn't do like sit. So like, right. So, we kind of like picked and choose what was important.
That's so smart. I mean, but that's how a regular budget works. That's how your personal budget works. Like for me, I know now that when I travel, I like to really spend nice amount of money because I want the trip to be worth it. I want to remember forever. But in my daily spending, I'm so like, people could call me cheap, whatever, but I just don't spend a ton of money on things because I don't really care. I mean, before I Ford for this call, we were both talking about how we don't care about name brand clothes. Like, I don't care about name brand clothes. I don't really spend much money on designer clothes and shoes and all that kind of stuff, but I do spend a lot of money on quality trips, on, food, my food budget. I do, put a little more because I want to make sure I eat good.
That's the same. I'm the same way.
Wine. Like, there's things in my budget. I'm like, I will prioritize these things, but other things, I don't care.
That's exactly how I am. Like, I don't, this shirt's from Target. Like, I don't really wear makeup. I don't do my, like, there's certain beauty to me, stuff like that's not important, but I'm the same way. We spend a lot on food. We go on weekly date nights because it's important to us. Like, I have season tickets to like my college football games. Like, there's things that I'm not willing to give up even while everything, but like there's other things I don't pay for. Like, we live, in a smaller house, and we don't live in the best area, so we can like save money, and like our mortgage is cheap. So we make sacrifices in like different ways.
Yep. That's how it's got to be, right? You gotta know what you're willing to sacrifice, know what you're not willing to sacrifice on. Okay. So how did you make the change from being this, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 21-year-old buying a brand new car with money she didn't have and caring so much about name brands when you were younger and a teenager growing up in New York, to being this person that you are now with such a tight budget and taking over the finances for your entire household and even having a brand about it? So how did that change happen? What motivated you to change?
Honestly, I don't know if it was like a one moment. I've always been like, in college, I, took 6 or 7 classes at a time. I had like double majored, double minored, I studied abroad. So like I worked in the study abroad office to like, make some spending money. I was thankful, like my parents did help with college. So like that helped. And I got a ton of academic scholarships, which is why one of the reasons I went to South Carolina. So the car thing, I think, was my like biggest, like, it was still me getting over the hump of like maturity wise, like, this is what other people were doing. And like we talked about kind of earlier, like my upbringing was very like brand oriented or materialistic just based on where I was raised. And, it wasn't even really my parents that like made us brand focused. It was more like, like friends and like peers and things we saw and like what other people were doing. But I started reading a lot, and like I've always been I've always loved to read. Like, we didn't have TVs in our rooms growing up or anything like that. So like it was either read or go to sleep. Like, those are your options. There was no we didn't have like technology in our rooms. I think eventually I was able to get my like Game Boy in my room or something for a little bit. But like we didn't have TVs or computers or anything in our room. So it was like read or don't. So I read a lot. And then in college, I kind of started getting interested in like budgeting or money stuff, but it's hard when you're like 20 and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
You need money to budget money. You need money.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I had, I was making like, I don't know, like barely anything from a study abroad
minimum wage back in then.
Yeah.
Because it was a different time.
Right. And once I got my full-time job, that's when I think I created my first budget. Cause I was like, I know I have a salary coming in. And, I looked at, when I was looking at apartments for rent, I'm like, okay, like this is what I can afford for rent and like other bills. And, the car thing was there, but I tried to save, but I was also in my, lower 20s where it was like, I wanted to travel, and I did spend a lot on travel. I didn't change a lot where I didn't spend a lot on like material things, but traveling, like I was in Indiana at this point, and we would take weekend trips all the time to Chicago and Tennessee. And like, I got to see a lot of the Midwest. So I don't regret those trips. Cool. I should have, should have, would have saved more in my 20s, but, or like in my lower 20s, but I didn't. And it is what it is. I did the one thing I did do, which I'm thankful, like my dad taught me, was like put at least up to the match in my 401k. So like, I've been contributing that since I was 21 years old. And like, even with paying off debt, I have never stopped. I won't stop it. We're not maxing it out, but I at least have stuff in there because with compound interest and free money from my company, like I'm not going to miss out on that while paying off debt. And then, I had a budget. I always had like a basic Excel budget when I graduated. And then, when I started dating my husband, that's when I, started asking more questions about like money and like his situation.
We gotta talk about this because you said to me that you asked your boyfriend when you guys were fiance, your husband before he was your fiance, when he was your boyfriend. Yeah. On your third date, you told him.
It was like third or fourth. He would probably know, but I was like, it was important to me. And the thing that was important to me was not if you have debt, it was more like, what is your like attitude towards it?
Mentality, your plan.
Right.
Yep.
Because I'm not gonna, I mean, my philosophy, and people have different opinions, but I wasn't gonna not date someone because they had debt, like everyone, like that was not a deal breaker for me. It was more like, how are you willing to handle this, and how are you handling this? And he wasn't in the same mindset of me, where he wasn't trying to, pay it off as quickly as possible, but he was open to, learning about what my financial goals were. And he was willing to like adjust his and really like get on board. So I knew like this wasn't a deal breaker. I'm not going to, be like, oh, we can't be together because you have like 6 figures of debt. But, as long as he was open and willing to like work on it with me and like understand where I was coming from and like develop a plan, then I was like, okay, this can work. This can.
No, I hear you. I think the deal breaker would be the opposite situation, right, where he still has the $150,000 debt, but he says to you like, oh, no, I just can't concern myself with that debt. Everybody has debt. I'm just going to pay the minimum for my life, blah, blah, blah. Like that's the red flag right there, because that person's not even willing to compromise a little bit and listen to, their partner's opinion about how the finances are going to affect them. Because once you get married, that's it. It's going to be both of y'all's debt, not just
right.
Not
exactly.
Just yeah.
So right. So thankfully, like, we had some money conversations, and then I knew he said it was around, I think he said it was like around 100,000 with everything. So I was like, okay, like it was a shock factor, but we got over it. We're on the same page. And then fast forward to when we were engaged and I was going to move in. And so I was ready for a budget meeting, like super ready. And like, then after we tallied everything up, we realized it was 150,000.
She definitely
so
undershot.
Like, yeah. So, I mean, I let myself sulk for a day, and like, it was either at this point, like, it is what it is. Like, it wasn't that he was even hiding it. He just like genuinely didn't know. Like, he wasn't really, as crazy about it as I was. He wasn't like, didn't have Excel files going and like tracking everything. So it wasn't that he was like hiding it.
More like your husband in that aspect. Right. I think most people, they have some mental account of, it's six figures at this point.
Right. So once we like put it all together and looked, it was higher. And, he was a little shocked by it. I was shocked by it. And, it took a day to kind of like let myself feel what I was feeling, because my feelings are valid. But it was like, I can sit here and sulk about it, or we can, like, our plan hasn't really changed, right? Like, we still have to pay off 6 figures. It's just going to take us a little bit longer than originally thought. So, we kind of adjusted from there. But it was definitely like a shock factor. And, we've had a ton of discussions about it. And I actually, on my blog, finally got him to like answer some interview questions, because he's
I read it.
He's like so in this, like he knows what I do, but he's like very more behind the scenes of everything. Yeah. Like he kind of pops in and out, but he's not like trying to be on like, everything. So it was fun to see some of his answers with like how he feels about money, because we definitely aren't like the same when it comes to like our money mindset. But he has been very like accommodating with my site, like my crazy like Excel files. He kind of lets me handle everything, which is good.
For him, that's a relief, because he doesn't sound like a person who really wanted to do that.
No,
but I'm sure you had a positive influence on him. I mean, I know you did, because I was actually reading your blog post about that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's adorable that he, finally sat down with you to answer questions. And you asked him what was one thing that he learned about money since me being with you, who's like a super money, money crazy. And he said that unplanned expenses and budgets don't go together. Like, it's like you have your budget, but then unplanned expenses are going to happen. And that turned him into the type of person who plans for the unexpected, which he wasn't like that before. And now he was very spontaneous before, but now he's not. And like, being in a relationship with somebody who is about the money and the numbers can actually have a really positive impact if you're kind of messy with money.
Right. That was the biggest thing. Like I said before, it was more like, are you open to conversations about it? And are you willing to adapt? And can we create a plan together? And if not, if you're very hard, like stuck in your way, we're like, no, like I'm not willing to pay this off. I don't care. Then that to me is more, like we said, the deal breaker than it is of having debt. Because, 90% of, I don't know, this is a made up statistic, but like, so many people who like are in their, in their 20s and like low 30s have some kind of debt, so to find someone, you could, if that's a deal breaker for you, that's your decision. But like, to find someone who has nothing, no credit card, no car loan, no student loans, nothing, zero debt is it's gonna be your pickings are a little bit slimmer if you're trying to use that as a deal breaker. But so it wasn't for me. It was more like, hey, can we create a financial plan together? And like, money for marriages or whatever is like the leading cause of like divorces and all that. So like if we can't get on the same page or at least have these discussions while we're dating, like this is only going to escalate, if we got engaged and got married. So
I hear you. I 100% agree. I do think though that when it comes to, because, me and my boyfriend have been together for a very long time. I don't know necessarily. I mean, I don't want to say that we don't have any plans to get married or that we don't believe marriage or anything like that, because I know I'll break his parents and my parents' heart if I say that.
Right.
But we haven't, we're not really venturing into that world yet.
Yeah.
We're very happy with just being the way that we are.
Right.
All of our finances are separate. But I know that like the way that I feel at least is that if we were to merge our finances at any point ever, I even though like if I were to take over and be like, all right, babe, I'm going to do all the finances, I'm going to be in charge of all this, I would still want him to at least be aware of like, okay, where are the accounts? Where is the money? Now, at least know, because if I drop dead and you don't know where the accounts are, you gotta know at least the basics.
Oh yeah. He knows, like that's exactly the conversation we had. Like I have my files and I'm like, if I die, this is what you need. Like so, that's the conversations we've literally had.
To have this conversation. It sounds crazy, I know, but you're absolutely right. This is a conversation that you have to have with your partner. Especially
right. Either way, either if you're the one handling it, you have to let them know. And if you're not the one handling it because your spouse is better, or you need to know, because like I said, I pay all our bills. I like make the extra payments. I put everything in savings and manage everything because that's just what we agreed upon. Like I'm better at it. I enjoy it. So why should I force, him to do it? But yeah, he has to know. He knows exactly like what files he would need or like where to find account information. Because I'm like, listen, if you have,
right. He better know, girl. He better know.
Right. Right. Definitely.
I love that. All right. So then, yeah. So did it come from that? Then did it come from like, you sort of figuring it out on your own, starting to budget, and then your relationship, and then you said, I want to take this to a public platform. Like I want to help other people do this too.
Yeah. So when did we start dating? We started dating in 2015. And I started my blog in 2017, and it was like one of my good friends was like, you should, start a blog, because she had a travel one she just started, and like share, your journey. Cause like at that point I was saving for like a wedding before getting engaged. And I was doing, there was a lot of certain like gurus that were like focused on Instagram, and I was doing things a little bit different. Like I didn't, like I said, I, still contribute to retirement. I don't believe in cutting everything from your budget. I don't believe that if you have debt, you have to like, eat beans and rice every day and, cut everything.
It's my culture. We rice and beans.
I'm opposite. I'm like, I don't eat any, like, I'm like, I just would rather, whatever. But, the saying of it at least, where it's like you're cutting everything, and like I never
noodles is like that's right. It's like
easy mac, ramen noodle, all the like college things that I would make in my microwave. But yeah, so it just kind of started as a blog, and really just me sharing like my journey and me, saving and becoming debt free as an individual, and like conversations I've had with friends, and it just kind of started literally just me as sharing like my first blog post. Gosh, they're probably so awful now to read, because it's like I had no idea what I was doing.
That could be
like back then.
They can go back and see your growth.
Yeah,
awesome.
Right, it's good to have. So it kind of just started as a blog, and then over time it just kind of turned into like people asking a lot of questions and like needing help and being like, oh, I agree, like, or yeah, I'm also trying to save and pay off debt and still go on trips and do all this. Like, I don't want to cut anything specifically. And it just from there evolved into coaching. And that's kind of like where I was. And then, so with my best friend who had a travel blog, we wrote a book that's on Amazon that's like geared towards high school students.
That's so cool.
It's pretty much.
You guys definitely check this book out. I need to read it. I put it on my list because I actually work at an organization that works with high school teachers. And so we're always looking for books and movies and documentaries and videos that are really targeting to high school kids. But I looked it up, and it's called Not Another Money Statistic: Lessons We Wish We Learned in High School. And I just thought that title was so good, because if you catch kids in high school, then they don't have to make those mistakes that we made to learn the hard way, because they learn early. So I love that. So you guys just decided to author the book together. Did you guys apart? How did you guys go about it?
Yeah, so we kind of have different, like, we have different stories. Like she studied social work in college, and then like I studied international business and global supply chain and like had Chinese and all this other stuff. So we have like very different, like we complement each other very well. So we wrote it together. It's very short. It's like 90 pages. It has some like questions in it, and like it's not long because we were like high school students' attention spans from like a personal finance standpoint. They're not going to want to like, you know, read this if it's hundreds of pages. It's like, you know, you could read it in an hour or two. Like it's super, if you like read through the thing, it goes through, you know, we tried to keep it as not biased as possible, like more fact-based. So it's like, what is credit? What is a credit card? You know, what a credit card is not, you know, how to create a basic budget, you know, student loans, scholarships, finding jobs. Like it goes through not just basic money terms, but also things they need to know, like if they are in college and finding a job, or, you know, after college and they're finding internships or whatever. So it goes through kind of the basics. There's different parts, but I want like things like I wanted to know, or things I've heard other people want to know, like what is a credit card? Like, you know, when you're on college campus, and thankfully for me, I never struggled with credit cards, like credit card debt. Like my parents were very good at explaining to us, like a credit card is not money. Like it just like, you know, I had a credit card in college. My dad said to help build my credit, and he just said, put $20 a month of like gas on it. That's all. You don't use it for anything else, just to like build credit. So I never struggled with credit cards.
That was my trap. My trap was credit cards.
But like my husband and other people totally had a ton of credit card debt. And so it was more understanding, this is what a credit card is. This is what it's not. You can discuss with your parents and like make your own decision. I'm not telling someone they have to use a credit card, and I'm not telling them they shouldn't, but I want, you know, we wanted, you know, high school students or parents to know the facts. This is what it, you know, this is what it is. This is what it's not. You can decide if you feel comfortable with using it. So that's kind of how the book evolved, and it was fun to write. It was fun to do together. We self-published it, and it's on Amazon and it's in Kindle, but it definitely learned a lot about like that side, like the self-publishing side.
Just imagine it's going into
but it
a
was
project
fun,
like that.
you know, so
without knowing.
Then,
I mean, girls have never done a book before, and then you say, let's write a book. It's a lot to learn by yourself.
Right. So it was fun. And then, you know, have that blog, and then, you know, now it's evolved to coaching. So it's been so much fun. It's that's like, really cool. It's a lot of fun.
Individuals and couples, right?
Yeah. So a few of mine are couples. Like it's a lot of fun. I feel like, you know, to have a husband's perspective, because a lot of my clients are mostly female. I'd say 95% female. Then if I add husbands, the percentage changes, but it's fun to see like the dynamic, because my husband and I are the same way. Like we don't agree on everything either. So it's fun to like have both in the sessions. So, you know, some individuals, some couples, but we meet every week, and I feel like they're like literally a part of my family. Like I
love that. I love that. Yeah. I remember when I was in the classroom, because I would go to the classroom every day. I taught elementary school, and I would see my kids every day, and I'd be like, you guys are like literally I see them more than I see my own family, and I feel like they're my family, my kids. Like, oh, I love that. Okay, well, I have you on here, and you're a couples money coach. I had to pull a couples relevant type question. So I went on Instagram, because I get so many questions and DMs and emails and YouTube comments. And sometimes I'm like, I try to get to all of them, but sometimes I miss some. And so just this week I got a DM from on Instagram. Her handle is @VeganLatina. And Vegan Latina says, let me scroll down. I just lost it. Oh, okay, here we go. My boyfriend is the opposite of me with budgeting, saving, and spending. He doesn't want to budget. He doesn't want to save. And I see his spending as a problem. How do I work it out with him so that we can either budget together, or so that I can take over the finances? We're not in a serious relationship just yet. We're newly dating, but I want to get ahead of this. And he and I have talked about engagement, but are not engaged or married yet. What do you advise me to do? So what would you say to her? Should she try to like get him to do what she wants him to do, or should she just like, that's your money, this is my money? I mean, they're not like they're super serious, but they have talked about engagement.
Right.
What would you say?
I would say, you know, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but try to have those conversations if he's willing to listen, and like, at least, even if he's not willing to do exactly what you say, if he's willing to at least engage the topic and like talk about it and maybe explain where he's coming from. I feel like a lot of men, or like even from coaching experience or personal life, like they don't really want to, like, I feel like women were like, at least in the finance aspect, we're like willing to more like talk about what we're struggling with, and like be more emotional and be like, hey, like this is really hard, or like I'm struggling with this, or, you know, mentally I'm, really struggling with getting out of debt or whatever. And I feel like guys are not like, at least for my experience, not as like open about it, talking about their finances and, their salary and their debt and all this. They're like, I don't want to, I'm going to just ignore it. Like, I'm not going to talk about it. And we didn't budget together until we were engaged. But the biggest thing for me to overcome was like, I can't force him to be who I want him to be from like a money perspective. And so, a lot of people do monthly budget meetings, and I tried it and I was so excited for it. And like, I had a binder, like legit put together like a budget binder and all these worksheets. And I was excited to sit down and go everything. And it just didn't work. And that was okay. And it took me time to realize like, just because this works for everyone else doesn't mean it's going to work for my relationship. And what we now do is just check in throughout the month. Like, I'll be like, hey, how is the month going? Or like, is anything coming up for, like, if we're in April now, so is anything coming up for May? Like, when do you think you'll need an oil change? Or, is there anything else that you foresee you needing to spend money on this month or next month? Like, it's more conversational. And and then I update the budget based on like our conversation. And so that's helped a ton with reducing the like anxiety around budget meetings and being super formal. Like, we have to sit down every month for an hour and review right.
There's no flexibility, and it's
right because he doesn't want to review that for an hour, and that's fine. Like, it's totally fine as long as, like we said, he's involved at least somewhat, knows what's going on. And the other thing that's helped a ton was we have separate spending money. So we have combined finances now is just the easiest because I manage everything, and having to like separate everything out would be not fun. But we do have 2 Alli checking accounts that are completely separate. And each month we get $75 that go into each of our accounts. And that's like no questions asked money. You can leave it. Right. You can let it sit for 4 months and then buy something that I might find is dumb and you think is great. And it's $300. Like, I don't care. That money is like, we each can do what we want. We don't have to converse with each other. It kind of gives us our own freedom still to have that like individual account while still combining finances. And like, I think for me, even like, it's important if I want to, I spend most of mine on food, but like, if I want to pick up lunch that day or go out with like a friend or something, I don't want to feel like I should have to feel bad about it for like increasing our food budget or, whatever. So I like it. It keeps us both like sane from there's things he can buy and doesn't have to be like, oh, can we add this to the budget? Or, can we do this? So that's helped a lot. I mean, when dating, I think the biggest thing is just open communication and making sure even if you're not on the same page where you're managing everything now, you feel like you can get there. And if there's any red flags, you're discussing those because you want to discuss that while dating, not when you're engaged or married.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's probably, from what you just said, I think that summarizes it perfectly. What I think the best sort of like tip to move forward.
Right.
I forgot her handle. Sorry. Vegan Latina. I think what I would say too is to summarize what Alli said is there's a range of options for how to deal with money together. And Alli realized very quickly that the monthly budgeting thing was not in the range that, was acceptable or enjoyable for her husband. And I think what you need to do, and what you could do if you want to, you don't need to, you could do, is to sit down with a piece of paper and literally write down what is the range, what is every single possible way that you guys can handle money. And then sit down with him and go cross out one by one. Oh, he doesn't want to do the monthly budget binder. Cross that one out. All right, dang, I really like that one. But again, it's got to be a compromise. And go through each until you find one or two that sounds sensible, that both people are willing to do. And, maybe that looks like you taking over the entire household finances like Alli, but your husband being aware, or your boyfriend being aware of what it looks like. Or maybe it looks like you guys splitting everything, but sharing with each other what you're doing. I mean, again, it just could look like so many ways. Maybe it's writing down everything that would make you happy and seeing what he says of that list. What is it that he's actually willing to do? And then you guys can compromise.
Right. And it might take time. Like, this was, we dated for a few years, then got engaged. Like, this has been years in the making. Like, this is not something that, especially if you have different money paths, like a biggest thing I talk about with especially couples, like my clients who are couples, is like everyone has different money paths. Like, your upbringing is different. Even little things you might not have realized you've learned from your parents or observed have affected how you view money and how you handle money. It could be like a scarcity thing, or maybe one person was raised that like everything goes on a credit card, and someone was raised that you never touch a credit, just little things you just don't realize. So have those conversations about your money past before you rule out like every plan. And it might take trial and error. You might try a plan and then it doesn't work, and understand like, okay, what went well from this? What didn't? What can we take from this as a learning experience and move on and try to create a plan together? As long as you're both open to, creating plans together, I think that's a good step in a dating, like from a money perspective in a dating relationship. I don't think you need to be so concerned while dating of like combining, of course, personal preference. But for me, I was not as concerned on combining finances and making sure like I understood every penny of his money. And, I didn't really get a good look at his exact accounts until we were engaged. So, we had those conversations, but I wasn't like logging into his bank account when we were dating. There is that trust factor while you're dating, and the conversations are key to make sure like, hey, can this work from a finance standpoint? If we're fighting over money every week, that's a red flag you need to work through while dating, versus waiting and ignoring it. And then when you do combine finances, when you're married or engaged or whatever, you have a lot more to struggle with.
That is, I will say that is one thing that scares me. I know a lot of, even just my girlfriends that I'm 30 this year. And I think a lot of my friends that are starting to get married and like my cousins, and I've started to notice that like, they somehow think that like, because they're getting married, it's going to solve a lot of the problems of a relationship. Like a marriage, a wedding, a union, whatever you have is not going to magically solve the problems in your relationship. You have to work on those actively, constantly. Don't like, oh, we're going to get married and then we're going to be so happy. No, you're going to be more angry because now you can't.
It's more magnified actually, like you realize things. And so it is a good thing that she's realizing this while dating, because a lot of people don't have these conversations dating. They wait and then have it when they're married and they're like, oh, I didn't know you felt that way, or I didn't know you had this debt. So she kind of has a little benefit there because she can have these conversations now. And like I said, that doesn't mean you have to have like a concrete plan that never changes, because, money mindset changes for people all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But at least work on it now. This is the time to have those conversations and see if there are any red flags, or kind of work through it together. And then if you feel like we are, we're getting somewhere, this can work, then you know that when you are engaged or married, it will be a little easier because you've already started this conversation.
Yeah, you laid the groundwork. That's right. I totally agree with 100%. All right. Before we wrap up, I have a really fun question. So what I've been doing with all of the guests is telling them I'm going to wipe away the face of George Washington on the dollar bill, and I'm going to put your face on it. And over the top, instead of United States of America, I'm so sorry, USA, we're going to wipe that away. And we're going to put your money mantra or money motto or money message, money slogan, whatever you want to call it, over your picture. So everybody who touches a dollar bill, who transacts with money, who gives money away, who touches it, is going to see this message. What would that message be that you want everybody to see?
Like, should I go like quote or like super patriotic? Like, there's so many options on this. This is like a big decision. Or do I just like say? I think so. I don't know. It is. I mean, it can be money related, but I think one of the biggest quotes that for me right now that just kind of like, it's actually above my like whiteboard in my office, which I'm not in right now, but I usually am. One of the biggest quotes for me is like, what is it? Let me see what everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear. And I think from a money side, so many people are afraid to start because they're scared of what they'll find out. And, even when I added up the debt with my now husband and all that, like, it is very fear-based. I can't do this. There's no way I can do this. And I know so many clients I work with, and when I have the initial calls, I don't even know where to start. I have so many accounts. I have 15 credit cards. I don't know, where my money's going. I've never tracked my money. And like, they just don't, because they're so scared of what they'll find out, and like that guilt and emotions that come with it. And then when, we work together and get through it, or you do it on your own, even if you don't have a money coach or whatever, you realize I can do this. Everyone can do this. This is not someone who is just for people who've read 15 personal finance books and listen to podcasts every day. Even if you have, just an internship or anything, you just have the starting is the hardest part. And it's just getting through that fear and realizing once you're on the other side, you can manage your money. Like anyone can, like no matter how you were brought up, or if you knew nothing about money, or you knew everything about money and you didn't listen, no matter what situation you were in before, you have to like just push through that fear of the unknown and fear of your money situation so that you can, reach those goals, and you can save and pay off debt at the same time. You can keep things you value in your budget while paying off debt. You can travel while saving, or you can do, not to sound like super cliche, but like you can do it, you can do it all in that sense. Like, will it take more time? Does it take discipline? Yes. Does it take a plan? Yes. Does it take a budget? Yes. But there are ways to reach those goals, even if they sound like impossible. Like, I never thought that we'd be able to pay off, almost $40,000 of debt in a year, right, while paying for our wedding and our honeymoon, and my husband's back in school, so we're cash flowing his school tuition, and we make 6 figures combined, but as individuals we do not. So like, neither of us have 6-figure salaries. Combined as a married couple we do, but like, it's not like we're making millions. A lot of questions I get is, oh, you must be rich and making, your salary must be $500,000 to that. No, like, neither of our salaries are 6-figure salaries. Like, so it is possible to do this. It just takes time and getting over that initial fear or shock factor of like, this is too much, I can't do it. So
I hear that. But you know what? No worries, because you started investing in 401k early. So
yes,
you're going to have that $500,000 in that retirement account.
Yes.
One day or another, it's going to be there. So
once everything kind of works itself back out, it will go back up. But yes, I'm so thankful that I did that. And, I put towards just the match right now, which is fine. And that's perfect for me. But with that money there, like, it's just starting. And that's the hardest part for so many people, is just making that decision and taking that first step. And the first step doesn't have to be like open 8 new accounts and deposit, $10,000. It's just like, log into your student loans or log into your bank account and write down balance, interest rate. Just start. Just take that first step, open your computer and log in. Like, that's what I tell my clients. The starting point doesn't have to be, something that's going to take you 3 hours to do. It could literally just be log in and write down what it says. That's it. That's your task for the day, and then move on. The next day.
You have to keep it simple, because if you make it some big scary thing as the first step, you're not even going to get past that to be able to get to the second step. So you have to make it a super small thing, bite-sized, attainable. And, now, okay, great. Now you got that. You're feeling good. You did it. Check that. And then move on to the next one. Yeah.
Right. A budget doesn't have to be formed overnight. Like, just write what you spent on groceries last week. Just start with that. And then, then do that for another week. And then that's how now you're forming a grocery budget. Like, it doesn't have to be where you know everything in one day. And I think that's hard with social media, especially, you see what people are doing. You're like, wow, there's no way I can do that. There's no way. It's like, have you tried? Have you started? Have you done anything to try to do that? And a lot of times, once you realize you take those first steps, you can do it. It might look a little different than someone else, but you can.
Yeah, that's so relatable, because I have all these fitness goals that for years. I've been working out and doing a lot of cardio. I go dance workouts, but then I go on Instagram and I see these girls that have like supermodel bodies with 6-pack abs, and I'm like, I'm never gonna look like that. But what's funny is, like, I actually start scrolling down to their comments or looking at their captions, or just scrolling down past their early pictures, and I realize the reason they look like that is because they've been exercising consistently for 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
So they got time in the game. Of course, I'm not going to look like that today to tomorrow, next month. It's about, the consistency, the constant commitment, not giving up. I'm sure they skipped a day or two of working out, but over time they kept coming back and doing it. Same thing with your budget.
Right. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Alli. This was such a great conversation. I'm going to have so much fun editing this. This was so fabulous. But before we go, I definitely want to make sure that people know exactly where to find you. And if they want to reach out to you to let you know that your story inspired them today, how could they do that?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram way too much. I need to reduce my number of hours I spend. So Instagram, send me, it's financially focused, financially with an I focused. And send me a DM. Like, I answer all of my DMs. So send me a message. I also have my website that has my freebies on it and ways to kind of get in touch with me there. So my website's just financiallyfocused.com. I have a lot of free resources and blog posts, and you can kind of learn more about my story there. But those are the best 2 ways to kind of find me. And my email is on both of those. So if you wanted to shoot me an email, you can find me through there too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alli.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
This was great. This was so great. Have a great rest of your night and weekend, and stay safe and healthy in these crazy times, all that good stuff.
Yes, you too.
If you like this video, which I'm sure you did because the video was the bomb, then you're going to want to watch all the other episodes of the Mind Your Money with Miss Be Helpful podcast. And they're all right here in this playlist. So click the playlist to watch those episodes. And if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Click the subscribe button right now so you can get videos every single week and to join Team Be Helpful right here. That's all I have for you guys. Till next time, peace.